Do you like your books with flogging, hanging, disembowelment, kissing cousins, and a dash of syphilis? Then you should read Candide by Voltaire. Guys, Captain Mike, welcome to Whiskey and Literature. Tonight we're discussing Candide by Voltaire. And why? Because last year I read 52 books in 52 weeks, including the 50 greatest books of all time as determined by an algorithm. Now that list is a living list. In other words, it does change as the algorithm to make the list and the number of lists is changed. The books on the list naturally change. So this year in January, there was a big update and 6 of the books were removed from the list, and so 6 books were added to the list. And I committed to read and review those 6 new books. One of them is this book by Voltaire. And I'm excited to read this book this year because last year when I read the classic books, oftentimes they referenced by the characters in there the works of Voltaire. So I've been kind of curious about what exactly was the deal with this book. Now, Voltaire is the pen name for François-Marie Arouet. He was a French satirist, writer, and historian born in 1694. He died in 1778. And I think he's exactly the kind of guy, if he was born and living in our age, he would be all over social media. He wrote over 20,000 letters and more than 2,000 books and pamphlets. Specs and stats for Candide. It was originally published in 1759. My copy was translated by David Wooten. The story, Candide, is only 81 pages long. Also in this book, we have an introduction, we have maps, we have annotations and some of the other letters that were written by Voltaire. So while I think that this physical copy is not like a great printing, if you're into collecting really nice books, this is not a great copy. But if what you want to do is have an intro into Voltaire, I think this would be a good way to go. It's pretty cheap, very usable, and has a lot of information besides just the book. And if you're into this, it's also available on Audible, but I didn't listen to it at all. Okay, style. This is a novella. It's not a lot of pages, so not a lot of details. It's a bare bones story fleshed out just enough to get the point across. It is almost difficult to follow sometimes as it moves along so rapidly, and you can be forgiven for thinking that Voltaire wrote this in a very short amount of time, but he didn't, and this was intentional. Ian Davidson was a biographer for Voltaire, and for Candide, he said it is short, light, rapid, and humorous. And I think that is 100% accurate. Okay, brief word on the characters. Of course, we have Candide. He is the bastard nephew of the Baron, and he's in love with, I'm gonna butcher this name, Cunegonde. And Cunegonde is the daughter of the Baron. We have Professor Pangloss, and he is the royal educator. And in today's day, we would say he's trying to indoctrinate our kids. There are, of course, quite a number of other characters in the books. We're not going to go through them all, but like a lot of satire, both old and new, Voltaire does weave into his story actual people and events. And usually this is to denigrate or mock. Okay, we're going to start the book in the Baron's castle in Candide, a sheltered young man growing up there. He plays kissing cousins and gets kicked out of the castle for it. He is quickly tortured, almost killed, pressed into military service by the Bulgars, escapes those guys to Holland, where he's reunited with his now syphilis-ridden tutor, Pangloss. Together they set sail towards Lisbon. They almost make it. They get overtaken by the storm. Their boat is destroyed. They're thrown overboard, and they actually do make it to the shore. Lisbon is then promptly hit by an earthquake, tsunami, and fire. They are arrested for heresy. Candide is flogged. Pangloss is hanged, maybe. Candide is reunited with Cunegonde, who was raped and disemboweled after her father's castle was razed. She survived and was passed from man to man until Candide kills her latest man and they escape to America. And all of that is only in the first part of the book. There are 2 more parts. And that's all we're going to go through of the plot. And did I enjoy this read? And yes, absolutely I did. Like I mentioned earlier, all those classics I read last year, a lot of them refer to this works by Voltaire, and so I was really excited to see what the fuss was all about. And this book does move so rapidly and reference current events when Voltaire was alive that a lot of things just do fly right over my head because I don't have a reference for them. And in a book that has perhaps fleshed out more, maybe he gives more context, and so the reader would understand kind of what he's talking about. They reference in here quite a bit about the Leibnizian optimism, and I have no reference to understand what in the heck that means. And there are other persons and events in the book, and it's kind of the same. There is some context to these situations, and honestly, some of these doesn't even matter what exactly he's referring to. It doesn't detract from the story. It's just a different understanding that we, modern day, as we're reading this, might not understand it exactly the same as someone who was Voltaire's contemporary. One thing I was expecting maybe for it to be more anti-religious, but I didn't feel like it was overtly like railing against religion. That's what I expected from having read about Voltaire in the previous works. Again, maybe there are some references in there that I missed, or maybe I just needed to read more in depth some of the notes and the letters to really understand why this was considered a relatively anti-religious book. Regardless of all that, I really did think this was a fun, crazy, quick read. And if you have on your list to read any 19th century classics, I would suggest you pick up Voltaire and read that before you read those other books, and put this on your shelf. All right, my guys, that's it. If you enjoyed the video, like it, subscribe to see more of my content. I do both book and whiskey reviews. But for now, my friends, you know what to do. I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great. Cheers.